The medical bay was quiet, filled with the soft hum of machines and the gentle rhythm of filtered air. Rows of transparent pods lined the metallic walls, each holding a silent figure inside. Only one pod still had its occupant, the last survivor of the ship Aurora's Light. Mira stood beside the pod holding a small basin of warm water. Her hands trembled slightly as she dipped a cloth into it. The others on the crew had gone silent weeks ago. The rescue ships never came. Only she remained awake. The man in the pod, Captain Ryan Vale, had been in cryosleep since the explosion in the engine room. She was told never to open the pod manually, never to disturb the suspended state. But the ship's AI had begun to fail, and the cryosystems were losing power fast. If she did nothing, the captain would die in his sleep, never even knowing that the ship had survived the blast. The warning lights flickered again. The temperature in the pod dropped sharply. Mira clenched her jaw and made her choice. She touched the control panel, bypassed the lock sequence, and the hiss of decompressing gas filled the air. Frost spilled out in curling tendrils as the lid lifted. Inside, the captain's body was covered in a thin film of ice. His chest rose faintly, just barely. Mira whispered, "You're still alive." She began to clean the frost from his face and arms, her movements gentle but quick. The warmth of the cloth met his cold skin, melting the ice away. The glow of the pod dimmed as the system fully powered down. For the first time in 72 days, there was silence. No hum of machines, no AI voice, just the sound of her breathing. Mira felt a strange ache in her chest as she looked at him. Even frozen, he looked determined, his jaw strong, his features calm, like a man who refused to surrender. She had read about him before being assigned to Aurora's Light. Ryan Vale, the youngest fleet captain in human history. The man who led a mission to colonize the Kepler Rim, a legend. And now, just a sleeping man. She continued cleaning the frost from his body, careful not to disturb the medical sensors still attached to him. When she reached his side, her hand brushed against a patch of bare skin, warm now, faintly alive. That was when it happened. The captain's body jerked. His eyes shot open, the deep gray of metal storm clouds. Mira gasped and stepped back, the basin slipping from her hands and clattering to the floor. Water spilled across the steel deck. For a long moment, he just stared at her, his chest rising in quick, uneven breaths. Then in a voice rough from disuse, he whispered, "Where am I?" Mira swallowed hard, her heart racing. "Captain, you're aboard the Aurora's Light. The ship is still operational. You were in cryosleep." He blinked several times, trying to focus. "The others?" Her silence was enough answer. His eyes closed, pain flashing across his face. "How long?" 72 days since the explosion," she said softly. He sat up slowly, wincing as his muscles adjusted to movement again. Mira hurried to steady him, but he raised a weak hand. "It's all right. I can manage." Still, he looked pale, his strength barely returning. She guided him to the side of the pod, helping him keep balance. "The ship's AI is failing," she explained. "I tried to keep systems stable, but we've lost power to most decks. Communication array is dead. I woke you because I couldn't fix it alone." Ryan nodded faintly, his mind already turning. "You did the right thing." She hesitated before asking, "Do you remember what happened, sir?" He looked toward the ceiling, recalling the chaos. "We were under attack. Not pirates. Something else. A pulse weapon knocked out half the systems. I ordered evacuation, but the explosion came too fast," he frowned. "You stayed behind?" Mira's lips pressed into a thin line. "There were too many wounded to leave. She stopped herself. "It doesn't matter now." He looked at her for a long moment, then nodded again. "You have courage, Lieutenant." A faint blush crossed her face, but she quickly turned away. "We should get you to the medbay chair. Your body needs rehydration and nutrient support." They moved through the silent corridors, dim emergency lights guiding their way. The ship felt empty, like a ghost drifting through the black. Ryan looked around as they walked. "You kept this place alive all this time?" Mira nodded. "Power cells from the cargo deck. I learned to reroute systems manually. I'm not an engineer, but I tried." He smiled faintly despite his exhaustion. "You did more than try. You saved us." At that, she looked down, unsure how to reply. When they reached the control room, he leaned against a console, taking in the flickering screens. The holographic display showed a damaged sector map. They were adrift between stars, no signal, no propulsion. Ryan spoke quietly, almost to himself. Humanity built ships to conquer galaxies. And yet one malfunction, one mistake, and everything falls apart. Mira looked at him, her voice steady. "We're still here, sir. That has to mean something." He turned to her, studying her face.
"You believe that?"
"Yes," she said simply. "If even one human survives, our story isn't over." Ryan nodded slowly. "Good answer." For a few minutes they worked in silence. Mira transferred remaining power from the cryo wing to the navigation core. The console flickered alive for a moment, showing a faint signal, something small moving nearby. Ryan leaned closer. "That's no asteroid." "It's moving too fast," Mira said. "Could be debris, or a drone." The signal vanished a moment later. He frowned. "Keep scanning. If something's out there, we need to know what." Mira nodded, setting the sensors to continuous sweep. Then almost shyly, she asked, "Captain, when I touched your side, you woke up. The pod systems weren't working anymore. Do you think—" He glanced at her, then looked down at his hand. "The human body is strange," he murmured. "Sometimes it responds to what machines can't. Maybe I just needed a reminder that I wasn't alone." She smiled faintly. "Then I'm glad I did." A soft beeping sound interrupted them. The console showed a warning. "External movement detected." Ryan's tone turned sharp. On screen, the display blinked, showing a small metallic object drifting toward the ship. It looked like a probe, black, insect-like, with faint red lights pulsing across its surface. Mira whispered, "That's not human tech." Ryan's jaw tightened. "No, it's what attacked us before." The probe stopped a short distance away, scanning them with a thin blue beam. Ryan reached for the control panel, switching off all external lights. "We stay quiet," he said. "No energy spikes, no signals." Mira's hands trembled slightly as she powered down non-essential systems. The hum of the ship grew softer, fading into near silence again. The probe drifted closer, then paused. A long second passed. Then it turned and vanished into the darkness. Mira exhaled slowly, realizing she had been holding her breath. "Do you think it saw us?" Ryan shook his head. "If it did, it would have fired already." He sank into the chair, exhausted. Mira turned to him, her voice low. "Captain, what are those things?" He looked toward the empty stars beyond the viewport. "I don't know," he said. "But they're not here to help." Silence fell again, heavy but alive. For the first time, Mira didn't feel alone anymore. Ryan's eyes, though tired, held a spark of the man he once was. "You said if even one human survives, our story isn't over," he said quietly. "Then let's make sure this one ends the right way." Mira nodded, her heart steady. The hum of distant engines returned faintly as they reactivated minimal power. The Aurora's light drifted onward through the black, carrying two souls determined not to fade. Outside, in the far darkness, a dozen faint red lights began to blink in unison. Watching, waiting. The ship's hull groaned softly as the Aurora's light drifted through empty space. Mira moved quickly, checking the external cameras for any sign of the red blinking lights. Her fingers trembled slightly on the console, not from fear, but from the sheer responsibility of keeping both herself and Captain Vale alive. Ryan stood behind her, leaning against the console, studying the readouts. He still looked weak, but his mind was sharp, already calculating trajectories, energy reserves, and survival chances. Humanity's instinct to survive, he thought, had never felt more real than in this moment. "Captain," Mira said, pointing to a small blip on the sensor. "Something's out there again." Ryan leaned in. "Describe it." "It's small, but moving fast. Too precise to be debris. And the energy signature, it's artificial." He nodded slowly, as if confirming something he already feared. "It's probing us, observing. These drones, they're scouting for weaknesses." Mira swallowed hard. "Do you think they'll attack?" "Not yet," Ryan said, tapping the console. "They are testing us, learning. But if we're unprepared, we won't survive the next encounter." He paused and looked at her seriously. "We need to understand them before we can fight them. But first," his gaze softened slightly, "you've done more than anyone could ask, Mira. I wouldn't be alive without you." Mira's cheeks warmed slightly. She looked away, busying herself with the systems. "We don't have time for gratitude. We need a plan." Ryan gave a small, approving smile. "Good. Then let's make one." He moved to the navigation console and brought up a star map. Red dots blinked faintly around the ship. More drones moving in calculated patterns. They're scanning everything. The ship, the power cells, even life signs. We need to hide our energy signature if we want to survive. Mira nodded. I can reroute power to only the essential systems. It will keep the ship quiet for a while, but we'll have less control over navigation. Do it, Ryan said. Our priority is survival. For the next several minutes, Mira worked methodically, shutting down engines, dimming lights, and diverting power. The ship grew eerily silent. The external cameras now showed only the black of space, no red lights blinking, no movement. Did it work? She whispered. Rian watched the sensor screens. For now, yes. But it's only temporary. They'll find us again, and next time we might not be so lucky. The thought weighed on them, but neither spoke further. Silence hung between them, heavy with tension, but also with a strange sense of companionship. Two humans alone in the void, fighting to survive. Hours passed. Mira monitored the systems while Ryan rested, regaining strength. His breathing was steady, but every so often he winced from muscle soreness. Cryosleep had been necessary, but it left the body weak and fragile. Finally, Ryan spoke. Mira, I need to see the ship myself. We can't survive if we don't know what's still working. She hesitated. Captain, most of the corridors are damaged. The engine room. The blast. I need to see it, he said firmly. If we're going to survive, we have to understand the ship's limits. Reluctantly, Mira led him out of the control room. The corridors were dark, cold, and silent. Sparks flickered occasionally along the walls, casting brief shadows. The air smelled faintly of ozone and burned circuitry. As they moved, Ryan observed everything with careful eyes. The hull is cracked in several places, he noted. Structural integrity is compromised, but we can manage with repairs. Mira pointed to a panel along the wall. Life support is partially offline. I've kept it running with backup batteries, but it won't last long. He nodded. We'll prioritize that. Humans need oxygen more than anything else. They reached the engine room. The damage was worse than either of them had expected. Debris littered the floor. Sparks flew from exposed wires. The engine core was cracked, a faint glow of unstable energy pulsing from within. Ryan's expression hardened. We need to stabilize it. If it explodes, the ship and us won't survive. Mira swallowed. I can help. I've learned some basic engineering from the ship's manuals, and trial and error. He smiled faintly. Then we'll do it together. They worked side by side, rerouting power, repairing damaged conduits, and stabilizing the core. Mira's hands were steady despite the tension, and Ryan's experience guided the process. Slowly, the engine room systems hummed back to life, though far weaker than before. As they finished, a soft vibration ran through the ship. Ryan's eyes narrowed. They've found us! The sensors confirmed it. Multiple red lights appeared on the external cameras, drones converging from different angles. They're preparing to attack, Mira whispered. Ryan straightened, determination in his eyes. No, they underestimate humans. We're not just machines or prey. We adapt, we survive. That's what makes us dangerous. He moved to the control room and began improvising a plan. Mira joined him, assisting as he calculated trajectories and energy pulses. They couldn't fight the drones directly. They were too small, too fast, too numerous. But they could outsmart them. Captain, Mira said, pointing to the sensor. They're scanning for life signs. If we hide in the engine core's energy field, maybe they won't detect us. Ryan considered this. It's risky, but it's our best chance. Let's do it. They powered down non-essential systems again and rerouted the remaining energy to create a false signature, a decoy life form drifting through the ship. The drones approached cautiously, their red lights scanning the corridors. Mira held her breath as they drifted past the decoy, ignoring the humans hiding near the engine core. When the drones finally left, Ryan let out a slow breath. That was close, Mira smiled faintly. Too close, he looked at her. But we survived. Together. She felt a warmth in her chest at his words. In the vast, cold emptiness of space, this simple human connection felt like a lifeline. Ryan turned back to the displays. We can't stay hidden forever. They'll return, stronger, smarter. We need to learn more about them, understand their technology, their purpose. Mira nodded. How? We don't even know what they are. Then we find out, he said firmly. Humans are explorers. We face the unknown, we adapt, and we survive. That's who we are. That's what we do. For the first time since waking, Ryan smiled fully, the spark of hope returning to his eyes. Mira returned the smile, feeling the same determination. Hours later, as the ship drifted silently through the dark void, Mira and Ryan began scanning debris fields nearby, hoping to capture one of the drones or at least part of it. They worked quietly, sharing tasks and observations, their partnership growing stronger with each passing hour. Mira marveled at the captain's resilience. Even after weeks of sleep, after almost certain death, he refused to give up. Humanity, she realized, wasn't just about survival. It was about refusing to surrender, about finding strength in the face of the impossible. And as she watched him work, guiding her hands, sharing his knowledge, she understood something deep within herself. They might be alone in the void, surrounded by machines far beyond human understanding, but as long as humans still breathed, hope remained. Outside in the distance, faint red lights blinked once more. The drones were coming back, but now humans were ready. Ryan glanced at Mira. "Are you ready?" She nodded, determination clear in her eyes. For anything. And together, in the quiet hum of the aurora's light, they prepared to face the unknown. Two humans against a void of endless darkness, ready to prove that humanity would not be forgotten. The red lights pulsed outside like warning eyes, closer than before. Mira stood beside Captain Ryan Vale at the control console, her fingers steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her veins. The drones had returned, this time in greater numbers, moving faster, coordinating in ways that made the ship feel smaller and more vulnerable. Ryan's gray eyes scanned the display. "They've adapted to our decoy. They've learned to recognize false life signs." Mira nodded, determination hardening her features. "So what now, sir?" Ryan smiled faintly, a spark of his old confidence returning. "Now we remind them why humans are dangerous." He moved to a secondary console and began rerouting the ship's remaining power. "We have no weapons that can destroy them directly," he explained. "But we can use their own systems against them." Mira raised an eyebrow. "How? Think like them, predict their behavior, force them into patterns they don't expect, make them chase shadows while we strike where it hurts." She watched as he manipulated the ship's power distribution. Lights flickered along the hull, then went completely dark. "We'll appear invisible to their sensors," he said. "Then we'll guide them into the engine corridor. One wrong move and they'll collide with the energy field. It won't destroy them all, but it'll scatter them long enough for us to escape." Mira felt a thrill of hope. "Let's do it." The ship drifted silently, a ghost among the stars. Outside, the drones approached, red pulses scanning, searching for any sign of life. Mira held her breath as they entered the hull's blind spots. One by one, the drones followed the false signals, drifting toward the corridor where the engine core hummed with unstable energy. Ryan's voice was calm, almost gentle. "Now, Mira, open the engine vents." She quickly followed his instructions, diverting heat and pressure into the corridor. The lights inside flared, and the drones drawn toward the energy fluctuations hesitated. Then one by one they entered the corridor too closely. Ryan grinned. "Watch carefully." A sudden surge from the engine core pulsed through the corridor. The energy was contained, but it was enough to push back the drones, scattering them in different directions. Some collided, sparking and spinning helplessly. Others were forced to retreat, their red pulses flickering erratically as if confused by the human's ingenuity. Mira's eyes widened. "It worked." Ryan nodded, though his face remained serious. "It worked, but we're not done. They'll return, and they'll be smarter next time. We need to make our escape." He turned to her. "Plot a course to the nearest human colony. We can repair the ship there and warn others about the drones." Mira immediately accessed the navigation system. The stars blurred as she input the coordinates, the ship's engines humming weakly in response. "Course set, Captain. But it will take time. The engines are unstable. We need to move carefully." "Carefully is fine," Ryan said. "Humans survive by being patient when necessary, and bold when opportunity calls." The ship lurched as they powered the engines. Sparks flew along the walls again, but Ryan remained steady, guiding Mira's hands, showing her how to stabilize the systems. It was exhausting work, but together they managed to bring the aurora's light back to partial functionality. Hours passed. Outside, the black void was quiet, too quiet. Mira felt a shiver run down her spine. "Captain, do you think they've gone?" Ryan shook his head. "No, they never truly leave. They adapt. They learn. But they also underestimate us. That's humanity's advantage. We think creatively. We improvise. We survive where logic fails. Mira smiled, a small flicker of pride and trust in her chest. Then we keep moving, no matter what. Suddenly, the sensors detected movement. A new wave of drones appeared, larger and faster than before. Their red pulses seemed sharper, almost intelligent. Ryan clenched his jaw. They've evolved their swarm tactics. But we've learned too. He moved swiftly to the control panel. Mira, this is our chance. We'll use the gravity field generator near the ship's core. It's weak, but we can create a short-range gravity well. They won't expect it. Mira's eyes widened. Do you think it's enough? Ryan looked at her, eyes shining with determination. It's enough if we act fast. Humans always find a way. Together, they rerouted power to the gravity generator. The ship groaned under the strain. Sparks flew. The hull vibrated. Mira's hands shook as she held the system steady. Outside, the drones approached. Red pulses scanning, moving in patterns designed to trap them. Ryan activated the generator. A sudden ripple ran through space around the ship. The drones faltered, their flight paths disrupted by the artificial gravity. Some collided, spinning helplessly. Others were forced to retreat. Mira exhaled, her heart racing. They're breaking formation! Ryan smiled faintly, but his voice remained calm. Good, now we push forward. Full speed. Hold nothing back. The ship surged, engines roaring, sparks flying along the damaged corridors. Mira guided the navigation with steady hands, trusting Ryan's commands. They dodged debris fields, avoided unstable satellites, and used the ship's weak shields to their advantage. The drones tried to follow, but the gravity generator and clever maneuvers kept them at bay. Finally, after hours of tense travel, the distant lights of a human colony appeared. Ryan's face brightened. There it is. Safe haven, repairs, people, humanity continues. Mira smiled, exhausted but proud. We made it. They maneuvered carefully into orbit. The colony's defense systems scanned the ship, then opened docking ports. As the Aurora's light settled into the docking bay, the hum of automated repair drones filled the air. Mira and Ryan watched together, the weight of their journey finally lifting. Ryan turned to her. You did it, we did it. Humans survive, even when the odds are impossible, even when the universe seems against us. We survive, Mira's eyes glistened. It feels incredible, knowing we're still here. He smiled warmly. It's more than incredible. It's proof. Humans are adaptable, resourceful, brave. That's our greatest weapon. As repair drones began restoring the Aurora's light, Ryan and Mira stepped out onto the colony platform. Other humans, survivors of distant battles and explorers alike, rushed to meet them. There were hugs, cheers, tears, and laughter, a chorus of life celebrating life. Mira looked at Ryan. Captain. What now? He looked out at the stars, distant, endless, and mysterious. Now, we rebuild, we explore, we continue. Humanity's story is far from over, and it's just beginning. The two of them walked toward the colony's main hub side by side. In their hearts, the void of space no longer felt empty. It was filled with possibility, with courage, and with the unyielding spirit of humans. Even as distant drones continued to drift in space, curious and observing, Mira and Ryan knew the truth. Humans were not easily defeated. Humans adapted. Humans fought. Humans endured. And humanity would always rise no matter the darkness.